love it. You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Happy anniversary!
Happy anniversary. 3 years.
3 years! I'm so excited. Whew. Oh, man. We finally made it. The peak of...
It's because, people keep listening, so we'll keep doing it.
I know, I can't believe it.
Honestly, even if people didn't listen, we'd probably still
do it because it's so fun.
It really is.
I was thinking last night because I was staying up late to work on my notes, and I also got distracted because I was doing some Lyft driving last night. But I was like, man, this kind of feels like I'm like, in college, like writing a term paper or something, because I'm like doing research and trying to get, and I was like, but this is all like self-inflicted. Yeah. But I was like, but it's fun. Like, I'm doing it because Katy's coming over and we're going to eat cake and like drink wine, and like I get to talk shit about some silly things, because obviously there's stuff in here I'm going to talk shit about.
Sometimes I'm kind of like, I don't want to leave the house. I don't feel like recording. But then other times I'm like, oh my gosh, can I go record now? I need a break.
Yeah. Well, I hope that this is going to be a fun episode.
Well, it's our anniversary. And
yeah.
Even on the nights that I'm like, I don't want to leave the house, I always still obviously have fun.
Yeah.
It's just I don't want to leave the house. But then I do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't want to take a shower.
Yeah.
But then I do, and I'm in the shower, and I'm like, this is nice.
Yeah.
Why did I put this off for 5 days? All right. I have
ADHD. You have a baby. Yeah. Oh,
no.
I said because you have a baby.
I can definitely shower around a baby schedule.
Speaking of baby, happy birthday to your critter. That was my next announcement.
He's one.
You have a 1-year-old.
We had a delightful jungle-themed birthday for my wild one.
It is very sweet.
Yeah.
And we're drinking jungle juice.
Yep. Leftover jungle juice.
It's delicious. What's in it?
Vodka, rum, lemonade, orange juice, fruit punch, and a little bit of cranberry juice. It's tart, and it packs a punch.
It doesn't taste tart to me. It tastes delicious.
Well, it's not like overly tart.
Oh.
But
it's dangerous because if you didn't tell me that it was alcoholic, I mean, I guessed, obviously, because it's called jungle juice, and it was an adult party with 3 children there. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could have several glasses of this and, probably get into trouble.
Yeah, no, I had 1 glass, and then I switched to water, and then later had another glass. And any cup that I would have, because I had some last night too with dinner, is I filled the cup up with ice. So I'm like, it'll water itself down.
Some. Also on my announcements is that we will be eating cake. And I'm not apologizing for that because
it's delicious carrot cake.
Yeah, and it's our anniversary, and you guys know that we like reasons to eat cake.
Or food.
And we haven't done this in a minute. Like, we went through that phase where we were eating cake like every other episode, and then we stopped. We were good. And now I feel like it's time to eat cake. And this is a homemade carrot cake that I made today, and it's very good.
Before you said something about making cake, I fully intended to bring cupcakes from yesterday's party because we still have a bunch. And I definitely had one for breakfast and then one later at second breakfast. I had actual breakfast too. Yeah. But I put, a bunch of them away in the little cupcake holder thing. And I had 5 left. And so when Dorothy and Nat came over, I was like, all right, everyone is having a cupcake for breakfast. Because they won't fit, and I'm not putting them in a separate Tupperware.
Yep. Well, I've only had breakfast, so... I also forgot that daylight savings was happening. So I stayed up late, and then I woke up, and Jarek was like, it's 11 o'clock. And I was like, I was like, no, it's not. It's only 10. And he's like, no, it's not.
Meanwhile, I texted you at like 9. Hey, what time are we recording today?
And the episode wasn't finished. And I was like,
You're like, and I have a cake to make.
I was like, sometime tonight. Okay. My next announcement is super exciting. In honor of our 3rd year anniversary, we are doing something that we've never done before, which is that we are launching 2 new shirt and I'm going to say sticker because I think they'll look great on stickers designs on our Redbubble store. And if you did not listen to 2 weeks ago, our episode on
Sasquatch,
specifically Sasquatch kidnapping, Albert Ostman, go back and listen because the shirts will be directly related to those. But they are amazing, and I'm really excited to have both of them.
Yep.
And they're going to be on Redbubble, which brings me to my next announcement, which, Katie, would you like to go ahead and tell people our socials?
So we'll probably also put those photos, as well as any photos from tonight's episode, or this episode, on our Instagram and Facebook at The Tales We Tell. If you want to see things but don't do the social media, check out our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. And if you want some sweet, sweet swag like these awesome Sasquatch shirts that we're totally getting, check out our Redbubble store at redbubble.com. Search The Tales We Tell. And if you want to support us but don't need the stuff, you can become patrons at patreon.com. Search The Tales We Tell. All patrons get early access, commercial-free listening, some bonus content. We'll send out random stickers and love notes as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you get our undying love.
And our undying love and affection, as always.
Also, I don't know if we ever say this, but you can also email us at the Tales We Tell podcast at gmail, which our listener Tony did. They told us in relation to the Albert Ostman episode that they have a friend who had porcupine stew, I think, or something with porcupine in it.
Yeah.
And according to them, porcupine meat is greasy.
I can see that.
So we don't want it.
They would, need some extra fat for cold weather protection.
Although, like, when I think greasy meat, I think of duck. Which I love.
Yeah.
Duck is
very delightful. I've gotten really good at cooking duck, either roasting it whole or just searing the breast. I'm really good at it.
Anytime you want to make some extra duck.
When we had that, the Village Butcher, when that was still here in town, they would get duck breast, and so I would go there every now and then, and I would get it, and I'd make, duck breast with mashed potatoes and a cherry port wine sauce. Like, I got all fancy.
Dang.
But not no more. Every now and then, if I'm lucky, I can see some duck breast at Publix. More often than not, honestly, I find the whole duck. I'm just like, I'll roast that bad boy.
Might as well.
Done that several times, and it's always delicious.
Not to brag, but in Paris, you can buy duck in a can. And it's also delicious.
I don't know if that's really a brag, but...
that's the only way
I've never had canned duck before, so sure.
It's actually really good.
I haven't been impressed with any canned meat I've ever had, so... It
was the first time I ever ate duck. It was prepared by, like... they weren't local French people. They were, like, Americans who'd been living in France for a while. But they had us over, me and my best friend, when we were in Paris. And they made this meal, and it was confit de canard. And it was a duck that they had... It's like, I guess they cooked the duck whole, and then after they cook it, they put it in the can with all its, like, juices and stuff. And then you just take it out and heat it up. Oh, it was so good.
All right, then.
And I bought some of that shit and brought it back to America with me.
Sounds cool.
Anyway.
If we have any listeners in France, can you please send us some canned duck? I love duck.
Yeah. And prove to Katie that canned duck is yummy.
Yes, prove it to me. That'll more likely get somebody to send it, right?
Yeah. Last announcement, sort of, is that this episode is G-rated. So welcome, everyone. Also, I have a joke from Tony, which is unrelated to anything. What is 1 foot long and slippery? A slipper.
That's very much like one of my favorite jokes. What's brown and sticky?
A stick. Yeah, it's one of my favorite jokes, too. Yeah, keep those coming, Tony. We like them.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't tell you I was doing this, but you can do this for whoever you want. I want to dedicate this episode to someone, so you can also dedicate it to someone.
I don't know what the episode's about.
I know.
So I'll save it for a tell we tale.
Okay, I have an advantage. I'm going to dedicate this episode to my mother and father-in-law, Stephanie and Bob. And you will find out in a second, which is right now, because this episode is about, it's the full episode on the Sasquatch.
Nice.
The reason for everyone else who doesn't know Stephanie and Bob, they're big Sasquatch fans. And I don't know. And also it's our 3-year anniversary and they listen. And
we'll send them shirts.
Yeah. We'll get Bob the
not built for beauty.
Not built for beauty or speed. So I also just want to, because this is kind of a big topic and I had to limit myself a little bit, I'm only going to be talking about the Sasquatch, not the Yeti or the abominable snowman.
I thought the abominable snowman and the Yeti were the same.
I think they're
kind of like Bigfoot and Sasquatch are the same.
I think they're slightly different.
Okay.
Also, the abominable snowman, technically well, I don't have the full story here, but the technical name, I guess, for him was translated as the man-bear snowman. and the white guy who heard that was like, I'm going to say abominable snowman instead of man-bear snowman, which I like better. But either way, at least the Yeti and the Sasquatch are technically different. And I don't have that much time, so we're just going to talk about the North American one. The brown one.
The brown one. Jeez. There's not enough jungle juice for this.
But see how jungle juice is now appropriate?
Yes,
okay.
The jungles of North America.
Well, we'll get into some Bigfoot history here.
We can call it forest juice. How about that?
Okay. Also, if anyone has any good names for, I wanted to come up with something to call like Bigfoot believers, because I kept wanting to say believers, like, and I was like, no, that's Justin Bieber.
Squatch watchers.
Squatch watchers. That could be good. Okay, well, maybe I just have believers in here, but I wanted to come up with something cooler. So the Sasquatch or Bigfoot is typically described as a large, hairy, bipedal, ape-like creature that lives primarily in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, but has been rumored to live all over the North American continent. It's usually described as being between 6 to 9 feet tall, but some descriptions have said between 10 and 15 feet tall.
Oh my.
It weighs upwards of 500 pounds and has a, quote, unique loping gait. It's covered in black, dark brown, or reddish brown hair, which usually covers its entire body except for small portions of its face. Some have described its face as a cross between an ape/gorilla and human. It's got broad shoulders, long arms, no visible neck, and a foul/skunky smell.
Well, yeah, if he lives in the forest and is covered in hair, like, nobody's given him any Garnier Fructis to rinse off with.
Yeah, but, like, not all wild animals smell bad. I mean, like, I'm sure they do if you get up close, but I think this one, like, I think Sasquatch kind of gives off a skunky smell.
Emanates.
Its feet are estimated, according to the tracks that it leaves, to be as long as 24 inches and as wide as 8 to 12 inches. Which I was just
That's a Bigfoot?
But
That's why you pay me in carrot cake.
And adult females, as we learned from Albert Osman, do have breasts. And unlike other primates, they are completely covered in hair. All of this, of course, is speculation because the existence of Sasquatch has never been confirmed, nor has one ever been captured or killed. Allegedly. We'll get there. They are believed to be mostly solitary creatures, although some researchers believe that they live in small social groups. Or,
family units.
Nuclear families with a mother, father, brother, and sister. Some people believe that they throw rocks and knock on wood as ways of communicating or as ways of showing like territorial displays. Vocalizations such as howls, screams, moans, grunts, and whistles have all been attributed to the Sasquatch. So really any weird sound that you hear in the woods,
possibly Sasquatch.
could be a Sasquatch. Some researchers believe that there is an actual language within these sounds, but that has yet to be proven.
Researchers. That's the part that gets me. Not the believability of the language. Like, sure, I'm all for that. Researchers.
But also the sounds are like very inconsistent. So like there's no consistency among the like,
because we haven't been able to sit down and try and have a conversation with them.
Well,
that's why.
Well, Albert did. I mean, remember when he first got there, he was like, "What do you want with me?" And they were like, "We don't understand you, sir." They're thought to arrange trees and or other foliage by stacking or weaving them together, possibly as a way of marking their territory. I couldn't really get a gauge on like why they would do these things. They were just like, "Oh, if you see some trees woven together in the woods, that was a Sasquatch." I'm like, but why? For arts and crafts?
Everyone needs a creative outlet.
It's their macrame class. Deer skeletons strung up high in trees have been attributed to Sasquatch.
No, that sounds more like the Blair Witch.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, that's the demon. They're known to nest on the ground like other large primates. People have found their nests. And many people believe that the Sasquatch, when interacting with humans, is curious but shy and would not act violently towards humans unprovoked. Eyewitness accounts allege that the Sasquatch is an observer rather than an attacker.
Also shows sign of intelligence for avoiding human contact.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if I believe that one, though. I mean, like, yes, like, avoid humans because we're awful, but also, I don't know, don't just assume that that thing is going to be docile and, like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, just because it doesn't approach you doesn't mean it's not going to attack you.
Yeah, I agree. And, like, there's some stuff we'll get to.
I mean, if they're calling it an observer, maybe it's observing how best to attack you.
Hell yeah. And, like, a lot of the sightings, people will be like, oh, I thought it was a bear at first. I'm like, if you think you see a bear, you should not be there long enough to find out that it's not a bear. If you think you see a bear, you should leave, because the bear will kill you. The bear don't care. The bear is not docile.
Bear don't care.
Bear don't care. Did you not see The Revenant? Is that the name of the movie? I forget how many syllables are in it. That bear didn't care. He got Leo that Oscar. All right. A little bit of history. And this is where I am going to fuck up some names, and I am so sorry to all of...
This is a G episode.
That's why we have the crow.
Here I am sitting over here, like, giving myself pep talks. Like, you can do it, Katie. You can make it through a whole conversation without swearing.
Well, I have to pep myself up because I'm about to unintentionally insult a bunch of First Nations people by butchering the names of their tribes. Oh, which, this is a great time for me to tell you. If you would like to look in your dossier, your very first item is actually a fun take-home activity.
Ooh.
It is a worksheet where you will get to, and I'm going to put this up for our listeners to do. This is a list of different names for the Sasquatch in different states of these United States.
Okay.
So it's a match. I don't know how else to say it. You match which state you think calls the Sasquatch whatever those names are.
All right.
That makes sense?
Good.
Okay. I tried it out with my coworker Taylor, who does not listen. He didn't do well. So there is a hint later on in here. Sort of. Not really. I realize it was kind of a hint, but I think it's kind of a red herring.
Okay.
So the name Sasquatch comes from the Halkomelem language of the First Nations people of British Columbian coast. So the Halkomelem language word is Saskets, which roughly translates to hairy man or wild man. All right. So we took that word and we're like, Sasquatch. That's what we call it. And then here's a not so fun fact. The Halkomelem language is nearly extinct. I know. As of the year 2000, it was estimated that there were fewer than 25 fluent speakers. I know. I think they have made an effort to, like, preserve it. But, still very sad.
Yeah, especially a lot of the indigenous people in Canada are really suffering.
There's a version of a Sasquatch-like creature in many indigenous cultures across North America. Okay, so the Staalis, or Statamic people. Okay, Lower British Columbia. I'm so sorry, guys. So they were one of the peoples that had the Sasquatch. Yeah, okay. So the hairy man or the wild man.
Okay.
And this was known as a shape-shifting creature that protected the forest. Which I kind of like.
I like that a lot.
I know, like protect the forest. Like the Lorax a little bit. But cooler.
Definitely taller.
Definitely taller than the Lorax. The Yokut tribe, or Yakut tribe of Central California. They are associated with a rock shelter near the Tule River. I'm so bad with these. I'm sorry. Anyways, it's a rock shelter known as Painted Rock, which depicts a creation story that includes drawings of a Sasquatch family. Not the same one that abducted poor Albert. This was father, mother, and child. So probably sister Sasquatch hadn't been born or something.
I was about to say, they might have moved from California to Canada and then had sister.
This is true. And it's not just them. They're among other animals, like a coyote, a beaver, a centipede. Just a bunch of other ones.
Cool. Interesting mix.
Yeah. This drawing is estimated to be between 500 and 1,000 years old. And the creature depicted, I don't know how they know this. Maybe they looked at the coyote and was like, we know how tall a coyote is. The creature that is depicted in the drawing is thought to be, or is supposed to be 9 feet tall. So they're like, okay, like 1,000 years ago, the Yokut tribe had a 9-foot creature.
Well, and if they drew a centipede, how big did they make that thing if they were making everything to scale?
Yeah, that's why I'm wondering how they got that, because I'm like, okay, I feel like the centipede is like James and the Giant Peach size, where the centipede is like the size of a human. So, I don't know. Who knows? The Kwakiutl people of coastal British Columbia. I'm sorry. They're all coastal British Columbia, so I know that's not helping anyone distinguish how I'm saying them. They have legends or stories of the Dusnakwas, and this is a people who lived in the woods, but they were covered in dark hair with deep-set eyes, and they were twice the size of regular men. Also, in case you thought that they were not related to our modern Sasquatch, the females, which were...
They were not built for beauty or speed?
Well, the females were featured more prominently in their stories. They also had, quote, large pendulous breasts.
Big old swinging boobies.
God help me. Don't describe a woman's breasts that way. I'm sorry.
It's men. It is. I mean,
just
have you seen
Met a man? Yes, unfortunately.
I'm so sorry. Surrounded by men right now. My dad's in town, and there's my husband and my son. So many men in my life. Son. He's one now. He's a man. Just kidding. He's still a baby. He'll always be my baby. No, have you seen those, it's cute, it's funny snippets talking about the difference between men or male authors writing man characters versus female characters. And it's like, she stood in the mirror and took her figure in, from her slightly narrow hips and her flared out waist to her full bosom that was just heavy enough. And, like, spends another 7 or 8 sentences talking about her boobs.
Yep.
No woman sits and stands in front of the mirror and spends or does an inner monologue just focusing on her boobs.
Nope. If anything, we think about, like, our bras and how uncomfortable they are. Or how expensive they are and, you know, how much...
Or is this shirt too tight? Or do I need to change my bra underneath this top or whatever? Like, we're not just sitting there, like, lovingly describing...
We're not looking at ourselves lustfully. No. I'm not.
So it does not surprise me at all that in all these historians' accounts and, like, descriptions of female Sasquatch that boobs are absolutely part of the description.
Yeah. And, like, what's funny is that there's a picture that I'll show you later. And, like, even in some of the, like, the famous, why is my mind blanking? Because I just spent the last, like, 12 hours researching this. The Patterson film of the Sasquatch, who does have boobs. I would not describe those as pendulous. They're pretty perky. Like, give lady Sasquatches their dues. They're not, like, sagging on the floor. Katie and I did the exact same motion with our hands. Like, come on. And, like, Albert with his rude-ass comments about Mama Sasquatch talking about how she could use a bra. Shut up, guys.
Yeah, it'll match perfectly with her absolutely nothing else because they don't wear clothes.
They're animals.
Can you imagine, like, living in a society where nobody wore clothes except women wore bras?
Can you imagine going to the zoo with a man like that and you're, like, at the orangutan exhibit and he's like...
He should be part of the zoo.
Wow, those female orangutans really could use a brassiere.
I hope that somebody listening is an artist and can just draw a whole bunch of pictures of various monkeys and apes, especially apes, but just, you know, a whole bunch of them and then have some of them randomly wearing bras.
No underwear, though, just bras.
Just bras.
Yeah. Also, I was looking for, I wanted a little Sasquatch figurine to add to our altar, but they're all boys, and I've decided if we get one, she's got to be a lady.
Yep.
As much as I am being forced to learn and talk about...
And then we can paint a little bra on her.
Oh, yeah, for modesty.
Appropriateness only for the shrine.
I'll sew a little bikini top for her.
There we go.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, one more thing about these, yeah, say it again, Das Nakwas, which had the females that featured...
Dos Knockers.
So they're twice the size of regular people. They live in the woods. They're covered with fur. The ladies have big boobs. They're also cannibals.
Cool.
I know, right?
I was about to make a joke or a statement, but you really stopped me on that one.
Cannibals. I know. I was like, make some jokes, but they'll eat probably you and each other. They ain't scared of nothing. The Natchez people of Mississippi have stories of hairy creatures that live in the woods and steal livestock. To be fair, that could be a lot of things. Members of the Lumi Nation of the Pacific Northwest have creatures called the Semequas. Although I couldn't find a description of them, they were just listed among similar Sasquatch-like beings. And the Iroquois people, which is the only one I'm positive that I'm saying at least somewhat close to, which they were in New York, Ontario, Quebec, a lot of the Northeast. They have a creature in their lore known as the Otneyarhe, or the Janoskwa, which means the stone giant. And these were giants that were covered in hair and had, quote, rock hard skin. A little red herring there. The first time the term Bigfoot appeared in print was in 1958. And this was a fun little story here. A bulldozer operator named Jerry Crew discovered a set of footprints in the Six Rivers National Forest while working a job there. So these footprints he found were approximately 16 inches long and pretty human-like.
Okay.
So he tells his coworkers about them, and his coworkers are like, oh yeah, we've seen like similar prints. We just didn't talk about them. They're talking about these. His coworkers tell them that there was an incident where a 450-pound oil drum had been moved with no explanation. Spooky. Ooh. And I'm like, you might have a ghost now.
Yeah. Poltergeist or cat. Poltergeist or Bigfoot.
Oh, poltergeist or Bigfoot. I like it. Or cat.
Yeah.
It's like rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock.
I feel like cats and Sasquatch would both get along, but Sasquatch would also still be a little bit afraid of cats.
Yeah.
I feel they probably just have the same relationship that humans have with cats.
Yeah. Just very standoffish.
Well, no, the Sasquatch would be submissive to the cat.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, what does it want? All right, whatever you want, cat.
There's a TikTok account of a British guy who, I assume this is all he does on his account. I don't think I follow him. But he just is like, your cat, and it's like watching you do stuff, and it's like watching you put together a scratching post. He's like, oh, why did you get that?
I'm not touching that.
He's like, we already have a scratching post. The couch, your bed,
your leg,
the walls,
the dog.
They're talking about these footprints, and they start just like referring amongst themselves to whatever is making the prints as Bigfoot.
Makes sense.
Well, then Jerry contacts a reporter for the Humboldt Times. And this guy's name is Andrew Gonzoli. And Gonzoli ran several stories on the footprints, and he introduced the name Bigfoot, which was basically literally just like the fun little pet name that they were calling it. But he also compared the mysterious creature that was leaving the prints to the local native legends of these large ape-like creatures.
Okay.
So he made the connection. He didn't coin the phrase, but he was the first one who like introduced it into print.
Right.
And then in 2002, one of Jerry's former coworkers named Ray Wallace dies because he was 84, and that's what happens. Mm-hmm. And his children came forward, and they were like, hey, we think that our dad actually made those footprints as a joke because we found these carved wooden feet among his belongings. Okay, but
nice.
There's a twist. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, which remember that name because Dr. Meldrum for some reason just keeps coming up in this episode.
Is he one of the Sasquatch researchers?
Yeah, but he's also an associate professor of anatomy and anthropology at Idaho State.
Okay.
So he apparently pointed out to a New York Times reporter that the wooden feet that Ray supposedly used to make these tracks didn't match the casts that were made of the actual tracks. That's your first picture if you want to look at it. Because the New York Times was like gonna do a puff piece about like the father of Bigfoot. And the New York Times apparently ignored that and did the story anyways. But that is Jerry Crew is the guy that's pictured with the cast of the prints that he found. And then the picture on the left is the foot that Ray Wallace's kids found.
Yeah, they definitely don't look alike.
I don't know why he had them. They didn't really explain why he had these like Bigfoot track like footprint makers, but oh well.
I mean, maybe he was trying to recreate the footprint, but like as a joke or something, but it wasn't the original ones. I don't know. Maybe he was just fascinated by the footprints and was like, I need that foot.
Here's a poor reproduction of it.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to get into some evidence of the Squatch. The first kind is sightings. And we're going to start with sightings that are anecdotal, aka before we had little cameras in our pockets all the time. And I'm starting with the silliest one because...
Oh, good.
All right. According to a book called Sasquatch by Don Hunter, which was published in 1975, a Sasquatch was captured in 1884. Now, I told you at the beginning that a Sasquatch has never been captured.
Allegedly.
But in 1884, these people in the railroad town of Yale, British Columbia, were like, we have captured a Sasquatch. So I'm going to read to you the description of what they captured, and then I just want...
Is it a female Sasquatch?
Well, they didn't make any mention of breasts, so I'm going to assume no. Okay, but I'll just read you the description, and then just give me your thoughts. Okay. Quote, Jacko, as the creature has been called by his captors, is something of the gorilla type, standing about 4 feet 7 inches in height and weighing 127 pounds. He has long, black, strong hair and resembles a human being with one exception. His entire body, excepting his hands, or paws, and feet are covered with glossy hair about 1 inch long. His forearm is much longer than a man's forearm, and he possesses extraordinary strength.
Really just sounds like they got a gorilla.
Right?
Like a young gorilla.
Yeah, or like a chimpanzee or something. Mm-hmm. Like, just, that's like a regular ape or something.
Yeah, but how popular or how common are apes up in that area?
Not common. So the book does later point out that a lot of critics and skeptics have said that Jacko was probably an escaped, like, circus ape or chimp or something. But believers, or whatever we're calling them, Squatch watchers are like, but there were no circuses anywhere near the town.
Circuses move.
But also, you're still not describing a Sasquatch. You're still describing
some other ape,
like something that already exists. Yeah. You're describing a 4'7", 127-pound monkey. All right, so that was 1884.
All right.
And also, I would venture in 1884, that's long enough ago that, like, most people probably hadn't seen, like, an ape or a gorilla. Like, they didn't really know. Like, so, yeah. Okay. All right, now we're going to go to 1924.
Okay.
Which is the year that Albert had his little adventure. His little vacation, we should call it. All right, so this event kind of becomes infamous, and it happens on Mount St. Helens, which I think is in Washington State. And it happens in a canyon that later becomes known as Ape Canyon. Okay, so a man named Fred Beck and 3 other men, including his father-in-law, are mining in a canyon. And early one morning, they're down doing their thing. They see a Sasquatch just peeking around a tree, looking at them. And so, naturally, Fred's father-in-law takes his gun out and starts shooting at it.
Well, obviously, what are you going to do when you see a Sasquatch?
Obviously. So the Sasquatch runs away, right, because it's being shot at. And then that night, the men all go to sleep. They're staying in, like, a log cabin. And they're woken up in the middle of the night by what is apparently a group of Sasquatch trying to break in to their cabin and kill them.
Shouldn't have shot at him, man.
I know! Fred describes I don't know what kind of janky cabin this is. He describes that there's, like, a gap between the logs in the cabin, and he describes a hand, like a hairy hand, coming through the space and grabbing an axe that's there and, like, trying to pull it out, and then they're, like, shooting through the holes at him. And, like, the whole time his father-in-law is, like, screaming at them, like, at the Sasquatches, and he's like, wait, I promise we'll leave in the morning, like, we won't hurt you, I promise. Which I'm like, You just shot at them.
Yeah. They're not going to
That
believe
morning,
that you're not
like,
trying to hurt them.
I'm Team Sasquatch at this point.
Oh, always team Sasquatch.
So this goes on until 3 a.m.
Wow.
And then the following morning, they do not leave immediately. They go back into the mines.
See, they're liars.
I know.
Why would a Sasquatch believe them?
And so they're back in the mines, and Fred sees one of the Sasquatch, but it doesn't see him. It's facing away from him.
Mm-hmm.
So what does Fred do?
Shoots
at it! So, and I guess he hits it because the Sasquatch falls, like, forward into a canyon, like, away from him. The foremen go to retrieve the body, and it's not there. So they're like, well, shit. The other Sasquatches came back and got him. So then they finally decide to leave, which is like, that's what you should have done in the first place.
I wonder if it was some other rival people who were trying to mine that area. Tried to scare, like, put on gorilla suits and tried to scare them off.
That would have been hilarious. Fred described the Sasquatches as 8 feet tall, with wide shoulders, a deep chest, and tapered hips. He noted that the hair that they were covered in was not terribly long, and estimated that they weighed between 800 and 1,000 pounds. He did not mention boobies, so I assumed that they were male.
All male.
You can look at your next picture.
Okay.
Our next story comes from William Rowe, which the next picture is just a picture of him, because there was one.
Yeah, I'm not mad at having this picture here.
I know, he's kind of cute, but don't worry, he's kind of a jerk, so you can look at him for a minute.
The cute ones usually are.
So in 1955, William Rowe was an experienced hunter and trapper, and he was hiking Mica Mountain in British Columbia. So he comes to a clearing, and he sees what he first thought is a grizzly bear. Which I feel like this is the equivalent of, like, when you find
if you're not expecting to see something else,
yeah,
like, you know, your brain just makes associations and leaps. Like, it's trying to process information.
I feel like this is like when you find a dead body and you're like, I thought it was a mannequin. And it's like, it's never a mannequin. And in this case, it's like, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, it's never a bear.
Except for the times it absolutely is.
Except that it's probably a bear. So he sees what he first thinks is a grizzly bear about 75 yards away. Mm-hmm. And he said he didn't want to shoot it, which, good, you shouldn't.
Thank you.
But his reason was because he wouldn't have been able to get it down the mountain alone. So instead, he just sat on a rock and watched it. Which I'm like, that bear could kill you. So just leave it alone. And also, don't consider shooting.
You
like,
go your way, leave the bear.
Leave, yeah. Okay. So he's just sitting there watching the bear that he has so graciously decided not to kill. And after a while, it stands up. And he's like, oh, fuck, that's not a bear. All right, so this is going to be a quote from him. My first impression was of a huge man, about 6 feet tall, almost 3 feet wide, and probably weighing somewhere near 300 pounds, which that seems not correct. It was covered head to foot with dark brown, silver-tipped hair. But as it came closer, I saw by its breasts that it was female. And yet its torso was not curved like a female's. Its broad frame was straight from shoulder to hip. Its arms were much thicker than a man's arms and longer, reaching almost to its knees. Its feet were broader proportionally than a man's, about 5 inches wide at the front and tapering to much thinner heels. When it walked, it placed the heel of its foot down first, and I could see the gray-brown skin or hide on the soles of its feet. So he's got a lady Sasquatch. So he watches it for a little bit. He watches her eat, and he describes, quote, its teeth were white and even, which I'm jealous. I don't know why this Sasquatch gets better teeth than me, who has had thousands of dollars of dental work.
Yep.
Then he starts to say some racist shit comparing the shape of the Sasquatch head. I know. Yeah.
Not
I got to that part and I was like, nope, we're skipping over that.
Not worth repeating.
Then he says, quote, the nose was broad and flat, the lips and chin protruded farther than the nose, but the hair that covered it there's not hair on the face, is what we're going to say.
Okay.
It resembled an animal as much as a human. Its ears were shaped like human ears, but its eyes were small and black like a bear's, and its neck also was unhuman, thicker and shorter than any man's I have ever seen. Okay, you can look at your next picture because he provided us with a drawing.
Yep, those are some boobies.
But they're not pendulous,
I was
right?
about to say they're not pendulous.
They are very perky.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are nice boobies. Like, she does not need a brassiere, I would venture to say.
Well, she probably would if she was trying to run, because
while
they're not pendulous,
no,
they definitely would need to be.
Yeah, everyone would need
tamped down.
Yeah, everyone needs
for running.
Yeah, I don't know if he made the drawing or if he just like talked to a sketch artist.
Somebody.
I hope he talked to a sketch artist. I have to describe that. Her head.
How long they spent on the boobs.
Her head looks like an otter to me. It looks like an upright otter with boobs.
It's something about the ears and like the narrow sloping or the short slope of the forehead to the nose.
More otter-like than ape-like, I would say. So at this point, William says that he wondered if this was like someone in costume. He's like, he was wondering if there was like a film crew and this was like part of a movie. And then after some time, the Sasquatch noticed William, and she was like, oh, fuck. And she began to back away. And then she began walking away and looked over her shoulder at him as she did. And then she made a sound at him, which he described as, quote, half laugh, half language. William said he thought about shooting her.
Oh my God. Sounds like he just wants to go around and shoot stuff.
So that he could, quote, have a specimen of great interest to scientists the world over, but decided against it because he felt, quote, now that it was a human being and I knew I would never forgive myself if I killed it. Which sounds a lot like Albert when he was like, I've got to get the Sasquatch to kill itself so that I won't get tried for murder. Jeez. He did go out later and try to find evidence of the Sasquatch on the mountain, like where she ate and where she slept. He said he found no evidence that she ate meat, so he assumed she was vegetarian, which I'm like, okay, you're not a scientist now, but whatever. He found a place where she had slept under a tree, and he found no evidence that she had used tools or made fire. So, like, whatever, William, who cares? And then the reason we have all this information is because he signed a sworn affidavit to this information in 1957. So 2 years later. And then my last little anecdotal piece before I get to some fun videos I get to show you. In 1969, Verlin Harrington.
Oh my.
Yeah, keep that name in mind for your next kid. He was deputy sheriff of Grays Harbor County in Washington. He was driving down a rural road at night when he saw, quote, a large, hairy creature standing in the middle of the road. It was between 7 to 8 feet tall, and at first he thought it was a bear. But, quote, it had breasts on it like those of a woman.
Oh my gosh. Are they also sure that they're breasts and not just very large pectoral muscles?
I want to rename this episode like Bigfoot boobies.
Yeah. Oh god.
Okay, this is more on that quote. While it was standing, I could see the back of one hand and the palm of another, and I could distinguish fingers. It had legs like a human and buttocks like a human. He also noted that its face was black and its eyes glowed yellow when light was shown into them. And the following morning, he went back and found footprints in the area that measured 18 inches long and 7 inches wide. If anyone has seen them, are we just commonly seeing the women, or
Or are people getting confusing pectoral muscles for breasts?
That's a good question. All right. So, moving on to recorded sightings.
All right.
So, obviously, our most infamous recording of a Sasquatch sighting is the 1967 Patterson-Gimlin film.
Okay.
All right. Background on this, on who Patterson and Gimlin are, real quick. Oh, also, I guess I should describe it really quick for everyone who didn't just watch it with us. It is that very famous kind of shaky, grainy footage of, like, the dark Sasquatch, like, classic Sasquatch walking along a riverbank and, like, looking over her shoulder, which, again, I didn't realize she had boobs until it was pointed out to me, but
I also wasn't looking for it. Like, I knew that this one did, but that wasn't what I was focused on.
Yeah, well, and that was also a kind of a far away. I couldn't tell until you, like, take a still shot of it. So, the film was shot along Bluff Creek in Orleans, California, by Roger Patterson and Robert Gimlin. The film is 954 frames and runs for 59.5 seconds, although the part that the Sasquatch is in is, like, actually shorter. So Patterson was actually, like, a Squatch watcher. He was, like, specifically looking for a Sasquatch.
Okay.
Gimlin was just his friend, who was, like, more of a skeptic.
Seems like a nice day for a hike. Why not?
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I'll go with you. So Patterson chose Bluff Creek because it had a ton of reports of sightings and tracks. So they go out on Friday, October 20th, 1967. They're riding their horses, and they spot what they believed to be a Sasquatch crouching beside the creek. So Patterson immediately began trying to get out of his saddle because his horse was, like, freaked out. He's trying to get his camera.
Probably because he's freaking out. Like,
yeah.
Oh, a Sasquatch, a Sasquatch.
And then Gimlin rides across the creek with his rifle to, like, provide cover, I guess, if needed.
Does everyone want to shoot Sasquatch?
I know. Leave him alone. And, like, if you watch the full film, it's kind of creepy because it's the first several shots are just, like, kind of regular stuff you'd see on a hike. It's like, oh, here's the trees, and, like, here's Gimlin, like, leading the horses ahead, and it's just, like, you know, quick 10-15 second shots, and then all of a sudden it cuts to just, like, chaos of, like, you know, the camera kind of moving, and you can kind of see him trying to get in place, and while he's doing that, you can sort of see a figure until he finally keeps the camera still, and that's when you get that, like, pretty good, I don't know, like 10-15 seconds of seeing a figure walking across the bank.
Yeah, it still just, it lacks the grace of an animal to me. You know? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, if it were an ape, it would just look so much more graceful, I feel like. Humans aren't typically graceful.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Don't worry. I'm glad you brought it up.
I'll go ahead and take a sip then. Ooh.
Yeah. So, I have to read this part just because I wrote it. So by the time they get to the filming part, the Sasquatch has gotten up and started to walk away. The footage is shaky at first, but then it shows a large, hairy, bipedal creature with boobies walking away with kind of a loping gait. She's swinging her arms, and she looks back over her shoulder at them once. So, skeptics have often suggested that the footage is a hoax and that it is actually someone in, like, a costume, like a monkey costume.
I mean, it looks like a good quality costume, though.
Well, one rumor that actually spread for a while is that John Chambers, who is the special effects master who created the Planet of the Apes costume, had actually designed it. And John Chambers was like, please stop bringing my name up.
Yeah, please don't attach my name to this.
I'm not part of this. So believers have pointed out several things about the footage that they believe could not have been faked. So the first thing having to do with the way that the creature is walking, which is what you brought up. Mm-hmm. So the Sasquatch in the footage walks with bent knees, and humans walk with locked knees. So like when we walk, when your knee goes out, or I guess when your foot goes out, you lock it. So like if you watch someone walk, the first leg that goes out locks or is straight. And this one, when they're walking, a foot is never straight. It's always bent.
So when I was starting to have a whole bunch of my knee problems, I went through lots of doctors, lots of different answers and responses, had surgery on them. And finally, after my surgery, a year later, I started having problems again. And he's like, it's probably just some scar tissue built up. Go see this physical therapist. He does this massage that helps break up that scar tissue. You'll be fine. Go see the physical therapist, and he's doing his initial exam, and he's kind of like looking at my hips, tilting this way, turning this way, have me step on, like one thing at a time, and then, one foot on a pad of paper, adjust. He's like, well, you have scoliosis, and it's the hyperextension is your problem. So basically, I would straighten my leg, but my knee would bend kind of backwards. I was hyperextending all of my joints. And basically, I'm too flexible is my problem. And therefore, it's just created this space in my joints, and that's what leads to my pain, that and the scoliosis, I'm sure. So he's like, do your best to, just mentally, we'll work on these exercises that'll strengthen your muscles. It'll pull on, strengthen muscles. It'll shorten the muscles, pull on your tendons and ligaments to help remove some of that space. But in the meantime, whenever you're standing or walking or doing whatever, try to always keep your knee a little bit bent so that you're not inadvertently, because for, most people, you straighten your leg, that's it.
Yeah.
For me, my leg straight is actually my knee backwards a little bit. So I went for a very long time of consciously walking with my knees slightly bent.
Nice. That's how I think I have to make myself walk when I wear heels. Or that's how I... That's what the walk reminded me of, is like kind of a weird... Which is why I don't think I walk gracefully in heels, because I feel like I'm kind of loping with like a... So like, you're correct in that could be faked. It just wouldn't...
I'm just saying that's a... odd thing for them to
point out as like irrefutable. Yeah, okay. The skin or fur on the Sasquatch has a rippling motion, unlike what would be found in a costume, especially in the 1960s.
I would have to sit and watch this video over and over and over again, 100 plus times to really zero in on specific things to focus on.
The thing, when you look at it, I'm going to call her and it. When you look at her walking away, like when you look at her back, which is what I'm trying to find now, you do kind of see what looks more like kind of back muscles and like the way that the fur is kind of laid out. Good grief, where?
I'd be fine just watching the video again.
Yeah, we can do that. Find it again. Not seeing it?
A little bit, but also not really.
That's okay.
I'm not a believer.
You're not? Oh my gosh.
You already know I'm a major skeptic.
I know, but still.
I'm not saying I don't believe in Sasquatch. I'm just saying I struggle with that particular video.
Okay. Well, good, because I have 2 more to show you.
I want to see them.
After we get through with her. One of the things that skeptics will point out, like when believers, whatever we're calling them, will talk about this rippling motion, skeptics will say, well, they could have put a water bag underneath the costume, and that could have helped.
That seems like it's too much effort.
Yeah, I agree. Too much effort. I mean, like, again, it's like, yes, technically they could have.
That's grasping at straws.
And then the other thing, that they'll point out, which there's two other things, but I'm saving the last one till the end of this little segment. Forensic measurements, or like when they've gone into the video and like kind of done whatever, figured out how tall the figure actually is. She's about 7'2". So again, not impossible, but you know, you gotta find a tall person to be getting in that costume. So in 1995, the BBC's Natural History Unit put out a documentary series called X Creatures, produced by Chris Packham and Paul Appleby. Not of Applebee's fame. And on one of their episodes, they set out to prove that the Patterson-Gimlin footage could have been faked by faking it. So they're doing like Mythbusters style, because that's what believers have said, is like, if it's fake, then fake it. Like, prove it.
Recreate this.
Recreate it. But you can only use like 1960s era stuff. You can't use like modern day shit to fake it. Like, this was filmed in 1967. So this is hilarious to me, and I tried so hard to find this episode because I want to watch it so bad. Okay, so allegedly they, quote, hired the best monster costume designer in Hollywood, which that was from a website that like clearly doesn't like them. And then this is a quote. While developing the costume, the chief designer said the Patterson creature's fur looks like, quote, the typical cheap fake fur they used in the 60s. Which, rude. I don't think it looked fake.
It didn't look that bad.
But he said, so that's what I used.
It was very silky looking.
I know. I was like, it looks very glossy.
Very shiny.
She has a good conditioner. So they only used what would have been available in 1967. So they came up with something, and they were like, this is proof that it was faked. Okay, Katie, look at your dossier. There's a side-by-side.
Nope.
The dumbest thing you've ever seen in your life.
Also, the proportions are wrong. If you look how long the arm is on the Patterson.
Take a drink, because that's the next thing I'm going to talk about. Does the one on the right look like the Grinch to you?
A little
Doing
bit.
that walk.
A little bit, but without the belly pooch.
Yeah.
Doesn't have much of a belly. Okay.
But, like, they showed that, and then later they were like, oh, it wasn't meant to duplicate the costume. It was just meant to show, like, the
No, they were supposed to recreate the video. If it was faked, it was supposed to be recreated.
Yeah, and I would encourage everyone to, if you're not looking at the pictures as you're listening to this, go look at that picture.
This is definitely an episode that it's worth going to our Instagram or our Facebook or our website to look at these photos.
It's very stupid looking. Okay, so in regards to the arms, which is why I waited until you saw that picture to point it out. Remember Dr. Meldrum from earlier? Okay.
He mentioned Never mind, go ahead.
So he has studied the proportions of the Sasquatch in the film, specifically in relation to arm length. And he concluded that the film shows a creature whose arm/forearm length to thigh/leg length ratio, which is a thing, is much more consistent to that of chimps and gorillas than to that of humans. So, like, our arm to leg ratio in terms of length is one thing, and then, like, chimps and gorillas have a different arm to leg length ratio.
It's because they're both bipedal and quadrupedal.
Yeah.
Like, they'll walk on all fours sometimes, and then on twos sometimes.
Yeah. So, yeah, and if you, especially when you look at them side by side like that, it does make it way more obvious that the Patterson creature has much longer arms than like a regular. So,
but even still, if you look at how like a gorilla walks on two legs, there's still a much more like graceful
yeah, they have tiny,
gait.
short little legs though. Well, this is what I was thinking with the next two, just because they're more modern. Like, if you come across something, so A, if you think it's a bear, you should run or like get out of there. If you don't think it's a bear and you think it's some kind of ape, you should also run because fucking apes will fuck you up. Like, if you came across a gorilla in the wild.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Harambe? Well, R.I.P. He wasn't doing anything wrong. But, oh, man. They kill you. Jeez.
Yep.
Okay, you ready for the next one?
I am.
All right, I'm going to show you another video. So this one, and I'll do my best to put the links to the videos, like, in a more obvious spot in the show notes. All right, so this one is called the Provo Canyon Bigfoot.
Okay.
All right.
Definitely not a bear.
Not a bear, yeah. Provo Canyon, not Provost. That's not a place. All right, so this video was taken in 2012, late October of 2012.
All right.
So the YouTuber goes by Beard Card, and he did not want his real name revealed in subsequent interviews. So he was camping with some friends in Provo Canyon, which is in Utah. Basically, they saw deer on a hill, and so they went to, like, get a better look. And then they saw what they thought was a bear.
Yep.
So they start filming. And he said, quote, "On our way up, we thought we saw a bear until this giant creature stood up and looked right at us. We ran straight to the car after that, leaving our tent and most everything behind." So Mitch Phillips, who is a video analysis and CGI expert, said that he believes the creature shown in the video is not someone in a costume, because he said the muscle tone and the fur appears to be real. And then he also says that the video does not appear to be, like, edited or tampered with or anything. And then Phil Poling at Para Breakdowns said that the on-camera reactions seem to be genuine.
Yeah.
He said...
Because they didn't even stick around to be like, oh my gosh, what is it? What is that? Bigfoot? They were like, oh, that's not a bear. Let's go.
Yeah. Appropriate reactions. So he says, quote, "Usually when you see young people involved in some kind of a hoax video, what we get is a lot of overreacting, a lot of, what is it? A lot of them talking over each other, pointing and performing in front of the camera. In this case, however, what we have are individuals who are relatively quiet. They're not performing. They're not hamming it up for the camera." But he also points out that you can't get a clear look at the creature, so you can't definitively tell what it is. You can just tell that, like,
it's something.
It's something, and the people seeing it are legitimately scared of it.
Basically, if it's a hoax, they're not in on it. Yeah.
And then Dr. Meldrum came back, and remember? And he said, quote, "It would be nice if they had held their ground and waited just a little bit longer to capture more of the creature." No.
I concur.
Dr. Meldrum! Safety first!
It was far away.
Safety first. What if it was a bear? Also, I heard a great...
I mean, even if it was a gorilla, it could have chased them.
True, but I'm just saying, get back in your car. I don't know. I think it's good to run. I just like that Dr. Meldrum's like, my scientific opinion is you should have stayed longer and gotten more footage. All right, last video I'm going to show you. This is a 2013 video, and this is what we're going to call the High Cliff Skunk Ape.
Okay.
Skunk Ape. Just repeating a word for you.
Okay. No, I have no idea. Where was this video taken, by the way? What state?
Oh, I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah,
that one definitely looked like an ape to me.
Yeah. Like, even when he was just sitting there, like, ripping bark off of the tree, I was like, if that's not a Sasquatch, that's like a
He's
fucking
probably looking
gorilla.
for termites.
Yeah. It was very, like... That's why I was like, if that's not a Sasquatch, you should still get out of there, because that's, like, a fucking gorilla that somehow got to where you are.
I bet that was some rich asshole's exotic pet that he didn't want anymore.
But then when he stands up and he's, like, fucking way tall... That's the thing about these videos where it's just like, oh, it's, like, kind of creepy or whatever, and then the whole thing like stands up and it's like twice as tall as you think
It's
it is.
Mighty Joe Young.
Oh gosh.
I remember seeing that one in theaters when I was a kid.
I don't think I ever saw it, but I know what you're talking about because I've seen the commercials. All right, so this video was taken October 24th, 2013 by Josh Highcliffe, which is why it's called the Highcliffe Skunk Ape. And he was out hunting wild hogs about 9 miles west of Tunica, Mississippi, when he came across a large bear-like creature seemingly looking for grubs in a tree stump. So he watches the creature for a couple minutes, and then he said that a truck on the nearby road passed by, which is what caused the creature to stand up. And when he stands up, it's obviously not a bear. And Josh is like, I'm getting out of here. He estimated by the size of the stump that the thing was next to that it was about 7 feet tall. This is my favorite because every article on this video is just like, this is the most definitive video of a Bigfoot that we've ever seen. Except for this one site called Chat News Today. And it said, basically said, if Josh was out hunting wild hogs, which are known to be dangerous and intelligent, why would he be scared of a Sasquatch? It says, quote, would a Bigfoot sighting scare a genuine hog hunter who's used to that type of behavior? You be the judge.
Okay, so I have legit been chased up a tree by a wild hog. I actually worked when I was interning with the National Park Service. The park, it was real swampy like that, and that's why I was like, that's a swampy southern state. It was bottomland, hardwood forest, and lots of swampy areas. And I was out hiking. This is actually before I worked there. Had my headphones in, but it was low enough that like I could still hear in case somebody came up the trail and they were, wanted to yell that they were passing me. And I heard some weird noise coming from all the underbrush. And so I stopped, and I saw some, like, shaking, and then I heard some grunting, and I was like, there's wild hogs in here. So I started running.
Right.
And found a tree that I was able to run up, and luckily, and so basically it was, like, thick brush, walking path, thick brush.
Yeah.
And I saw the thing dart across the walking path into the brush, and I'm just up the tree like, well, shit. And then I also had some other encounters when I was actually interning. We had to actually catalog all of the damage that they've done to the trails.
Jeez.
And there was times where we were bushwhacking, like, one intern was 3 feet in front of me, and I couldn't see them because it was so thick.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I hope there's not hogs that get us here. Because the hogs weren't normal hogs.
Oh, gosh.
They were the domestic feral pig that had crossbred with Russian boars.
What the fuck?
So not only were they smart like feral hogs.
First of all, you just said domestic feral hog. That's not a thing. What is that?
So just because they're a domesticated breed doesn't mean they can't still be feral. Kind of like there's feral cats. It's a domestic cat.
Okay.
It's just feral because it's wild.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I know it sounds like an oxymoron.
Okay.
But
So not like a wild boar.
no,
a wild boar. Okay.
yeah, with tusks. So
Okay.
it's a feral hog. So it's wild pig.
Yeah.
It's just, when you think pig, you think of like Babe.
Yeah.
So imagine Babe all grown up.
Uh-huh.
That's a domestic hog.
Right.
But he's out in the wild.
Yeah.
Crossbred with a Russian boar. Which, yes, tusks. Big, mean, scary.
How
plus
did they get
smart pigs.
How did the Russian boars get to them?
Because some rich asshole
Brought their gorilla and their Russian boars over here.
So yeah, somebody had some land nearby that they had brought in Russian boars to hunt on their own lands until Hurricane Rita came through. And with all the flooding and the destruction, they were able to get out of that enclosed property. and that's how they crossbred with the other feral hogs. So the whole park has now been, and they reproduce like 4 times a year. And so the law enforcement officers, you know, part of their job was honestly like hunting and trapping and killing these hogs. And so they actually set up some traps. Mm-hmm. And they put cameras up there. So basically it's like a corral with a door. So they go in, and once they're in, door closes, traps them in there,
right,
and they're euthanized. They actually have on video, the mama would send one of her piglets in. They would see the feed and be like, okay, you, Timmy, go check that out.
Oh, no.
And once the trap door sprung, she was like, oh, nope, we're moving on.
Oh.
They're that smart that they figured out the trap.
They're so mean.
And they would send in a sacrificial piglet.
Oh, gosh.
I know, it's terrible,
Heartless.
but also really impressive how smart they are. But then, yeah, because of breeding with those boars, they just got bigger and meaner,
Jeez,
as well as smart.
I'm going to do an episode on freaking heartless pigs. Because then I also think of pigs and I'm like, oh yeah, they'll eat anything, just dead bodies. And
I have a book that you can read. It's There Are Worse Moms Than You.
Oh yeah, I remember. Great. I can't wait for that. Ugh, gosh. Well, the moral of that story is if you're hunting wild pigs, then you shouldn't be scared of Sasquatch. And if you are, then it's obviously a hoax.
If you are, you're a wuss. I'm just saying that, yes, you should be afraid of.
You should be very afraid of
wild hogs.
Or an escaped gorilla or whatever that was.
I would be even more afraid of the gorilla.
Yeah. Everyone go watch. And honestly,
because the pigs can't chase you up a tree. If you can get your butt up a tree, at least the pig can't get at you. And
after this, I'm literally just going to be like binging through Bigfoot sighting videos because they're so fun to watch.
Send me any good ones you get.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about some footprint stuff real quick.
All right.
Because I found this weirdly fascinating. All right, so anatomically speaking, and I will preface this by saying I am not a scientist. Katy is a scientist. I am not a scientist, so bear with me here. Anatomically speaking, the foot of a Sasquatch. Look at my foot for reference here.
All right.
So foot of a Sasquatch would be much larger. It's going to have a thicker ankle, a cankle, if you will. Mm-hmm. A longer heel, and this is all to support the weight and height of such a creature. And so this is because, correct me if I'm wrong, essentially your calf muscles create like a lever pulley system with your heel and your foot. And so the longer heel and a shorter forefoot would create greater leverage. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Just everyone look at a diagram. I don't know. Okay, so many footprints that are considered genuine, this kind of structure is reflected in that. So prints are usually flat-footed with no arch and have a double ball behind the big toe, which would make sense in an animal that has a longer heel because the ankle would be moved up towards the middle of the foot. Because there would be no arch, a double ball would develop.
So think about it like this with the long heel versus, or, the foot. If you're standing up, you can lean forward pretty far before toppling over.
Right.
You can't lean back far at all, like at the ankle I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, like, think about Michael Jackson doing that leaning forward thing at the ankle. You can do that a good little bit, but you can't lean back because you just rock back, you roll, and you fall.
Right.
If, your ankle was more in the middle of it, then you could do that thing.
Yeah. Obviously, the point of all this is that it's highly unlikely that so many footprints would be faked to such a level of sophistication. There was also a set of prints that was discovered in the snow near Bossburg, Washington in December of 1969. And the right foot of these prints appeared to be a clubbed foot. And what was interesting about this was not just that if these were faked, it like some sicko created like fake Bigfoot prints with a clubbed foot. But the clubbed foot appeared to, like, according to whatever analysis, was not clubbed the way that a human foot would club, but it was clubbed in the way that a foot with a longer heel and a shorter forefoot would club. How that is, I don't know. I'm not a podiatrist, but, you know.
We'll just have to trust him, I guess.
Trust the expert. This is a quote from a New York Times article, which is very good and will be in the show notes. That's about all of this. Quote, "The idea that the footprints could have been made by hoaxers becomes even harder to believe than the idea that the Sasquatch exists." Which is pointing out the fact that, like, when you get into all of these details of, like, the clubbed foot and figuring out the way a foot of that specific kind would club versus a regular foot, and then, like, even figuring out how a creature that large, how their feet would develop and all that stuff, it's like, yeah, believing that all of the hoaxers would be doing all of that, believing that is harder than just believing that, like, there's some creature actually making these footprints.
It's way, it was hard to go to that great of lengths to fake it.
Yeah. Another thing is that a lot of many of the tracks, again, the ones that we consider genuine, the depth of the tracks indicate that whatever has made them weighs a great deal. So it's not like it's just a regular person wearing fake feet. So whatever is making the tracks, if it's a person with the fake feet, like that guy Ray, he'd have to be carrying like hundreds of extra pounds. Also, the remoteness of many of the tracks indicates that it's likely that, quote, 100 times as many tracks were laid as have been discovered. Basically meaning, like, we have found them in so many different remote, isolated places that, like, why would hoaxers put them out here if there's such little possibility that they would be found?
Yeah, if it's a hoax, you want it to be seen.
Exactly. It's like doing a crop circle, like, you know, in the middle of nowhere. And then many tracks go over large obstacles that would be all but impossible for humans to traverse. For example, the clubbed foot tracks go over a 43-inch fence. Just like, they just step over it easily. All right, and then I'm going to end on a little bit of science for you.
All right, bring it.
All right. So, 1.9 billion years ago, I'm kidding, million years ago, there was an animal called the Gigantopithecus, which is a close relative of the modern orangutan. It was larger than a gorilla and had teeth similar to a human, probably straight and white, just like Lady Sasquatch. And it's possible that the Sasquatch is a descendant of the Gigantopithecus and migrated to northwestern United States via the Ice Bridge. Your last picture is just a little family tree, not family tree, but it's a thing showing you how the Gigantopithecus could have been related. Sasquatches and orangutans have similar traits: reddish brown hair, they're highly intelligent, they show curiosity about human behavior, and they live in relative solitude. If the Sasquatch population were widely dispersed enough, presumably on purpose because they want to avoid humans because humans are awful, and if they have a relatively long lifespan, their skeletal remains would be rare and hard to find. So this is explaining why we haven't found Sasquatch bones. So
also that one indigenous group described their Sasquatch as cannibals.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it could be that
they're just eating them. That would actually make a lot more sense. What if every Sasquatch you saw was just wearing, like, bone necklaces and, like, jewelry and shit? They're like, that's why you don't see the bones anywhere.
Woven into the trees.
Gosh, that's so creepy.
That's what I was going for.
You should be a forest witch or something.
Maybe I am. You haven't seen me at the cabin yet.
They're woven into the trees. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Actually, I think that's what I'm going to do. Next time we have, like, fried chicken or T-bone steak or something, I'm going to make sure that we save it so I can go and hang it from the trees at the cabin.
You're just gonna ward off like people like you're gonna ward off trespassers. It's like they're gonna be like wandering through the woods and find like Blair Witch shit.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be like, oh, there's a house built up here, but there's a road that leads down to the creek. We can totally go. Or across the creek, we saw some people out four-wheeling, so we don't want them to get any ideas that they can come over and hang out in our pavilion. So there'll be bones and shit.
Critter's not gonna have any friends growing up.
He's gonna be very popular. You saw how many people came to his party yesterday. He's very popular.
Grown adults. Yeah.
And every single one of them was thrilled to see him.
And then he tried to hit the one other baby that was there.
He wasn't hitting. He was hitting on. He was definitely hitting on Elsie.
I saw some smacking going on.
He was trying to get her bow. Because he likes but doesn't like when I put things on his head. He thinks it's hilarious and he knocks it off. And if I put something on my head, he's like, no, it doesn't belong there. And he tries to reach up and get it. So he was like, that doesn't belong up there. Let me get that bow for you. Anyway.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so back to these bones that are woven into the trees. Oh my gosh. Okay, so the theory is Sasquatch populations are widely dispersed because they don't like people. They live for a long time, so like they're not dying very often.
Which is interesting given their size.
Yes.
Typically it's big things.
Yeah.
Like don't live for very long.
Yeah. And then apparently, which I didn't fact check this, so I don't know. Apparently bones can decay in as little as 5 to 10 years. Is that true?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I'm just putting it out there.
I guess it depends on the quality of the bones, but also it mostly depends on the
environment.
Yeah. Because, like, especially in the north areas, with it being so cold, they'd be more likely to be preserved for longer than to break down.
Hey, you know where we should go to find this out?
The Body Farm.
The Body Farm! We haven't brought that up in so long. Okay. According to whoever wrote this theory, they're not dying very often, and when they are, their bones are like
just decaying quickly.
This suddenly reminded me. Yeah, this suddenly reminded me of like Ted Bundy's victims, which is very morbid, but like scattered very widely apart, and then just like decaying, and so no one finds them. Which I guess makes it at least feasible that might be why we haven't discovered their bones yet.
Well, and they also could be, subject to scavengers.
Yeah.
And their bones are being spread apart in different areas, and, with it being, ape-like / humanoid.
Yeah.
If bone fragments are found, they could be misidentified as human.
I also like the idea, because I read somewhere, I was like, maybe they're just like, maybe they bury their dead or something. Or, like, have some kind of ritual where they're doing something with them.
And, see, I thought of that, too, but also, eventually, those bones will be found for some reason or another.
And eventually we might find them. It's just not right now. And speaking of, a lot of people have pointed out that we are still making zoological discoveries, like, currently. Like, we haven't discovered everything yet. And granted, this is from an article from the 70s, but, like, whatever. Still relevant. So, a couple examples. The coelacanth fish.
Coelacanth.
That's how you say that? Coelacanth?
C-O-E-L.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coelacanth.
Coelacanth fish. Cool. Great. Let's change the spelling of it. Well, we thought that was extinct for 60 million years. But we discovered it in 1938 in the waters off of South Africa.
I actually knew that.
Okay. Did you know that the Komodo dragon wasn't discovered until 1912?
I did not know that, but I was on an island covered with Komodo dragons running wild.
Creepy.
And my parents we were just wandering around waiting for the plane to refuel. And apparently the Komodo dragons were just kind of like, wandering around, sniffing through the trash and looking at me like I was a little snack.
Yeah, you probably were at that age.
Coelacanth.
Okay. Change the spelling. C-O-E does not a C sound make. Also, The existence of gorillas wasn't confirmed until the late 19th century. And before that, they were just considered legendary creatures. Which I think is hilarious. All right, I'm going to end with a quote from a guy named Grover Krantz.
I'm listening. Grover.
He is a Washington State University anthropologist.
Okay.
Quote, as Sherlock Holmes put it, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Even if none of the hundreds of... This part is not Sherlock Holmes after that part. Even if none...
I think we all know that.
Even if none of the hundreds of sightings have ever occurred, we would still be forced to conclude that a giant bipedal primate does indeed inhabit the forests of the Pacific Northwest. And that, dear gentle listeners, is our 3-year anniversary episode on the Sasquatch and her boobies.
I'm going to call it the Squatch Shake.
The Squatch Shake.
The Sasquimmy
Everyone
shimmy.
please at least go to Redbubble and look at the designs because they're
brilliant.
Silly.
All right, well, it's been a great 3 years. We'll see you back next year for our 4-year anniversary.
I know.
And, you know, every Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever our release date is, in between.
Yep. My brain broke.
It did. You full-on glitched. Turn yourself off and turn it back on again.
Okay. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.